Alrighty. We first of all like to welcome you on behalf of Colorado Healthcare Policy and Finance to this Behavioral Health Transition Support Grant Q&A webinar. This is in support of ARPA 2.01, the grant that was posted last week. And just to begin, my name is Tyler Marsh. I'm the unit supervisor for the Behavioral Health Safety Net. And I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Jay.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending. My name is Jana Jackson, but I go by Jay, and I am the grant specialist on Tyler's team for Behavioral Health Safety Net grants and projects.
And again, this is an agenda. We just have a quick, short slides just to give a quick overview of the grant. If you haven't read it yet, we'll be reviewing the grant qualifications and details there. We'll have some reminders and resources at the end of these slides. This can include just some simple dates to remember, also some grant writing resources if it's your first time writing the grant, or if you would like some help or some assistance with different parts of the grant, we'll be having those available. And then we'll switch it over to the Q&A session at the end. So just to review, this is Behavioral Health Transition Support, ARPA 2.01. It's a total amount of $14 million, with each awarded option being up to $2.5 million per awardee. The goal of this is short-term grant funding for behavioral health crisis and transition services between residential inpatient and the move to community and outpatient care. The aim is to support members moving from institute or corrections to the community, and again, to community or outpatient care. It will be a focus on increasing capacity for community-based care or existing services. And there is a chance there will likely be a few capital focused programs, and we'll get into the details on that if you choose to go that option. Because this is a relatively new space for HCPF, we do have some anticipated outcomes that we are, again, aiming to improve health and welfare for Health First Colorado members, improve service delivery option for crisis and transition programs, and create pathways that ultimately improve care transitions. This can also include care coordination, care management, and finally, using the funding to support infrastructure and community integration as our members transition. Next slide.
Thank you, Tyler. I'm going to go over some of the grant details right now. So if you have not had a chance to look at the opportunity, I just want to go over some important dates that you want to remember. The opportunity opened October 17th, and it will close on November 16th at 5 p.m. That is the application period, and you would send the application with all supporting documents to me. December 15th through December 20th, the awards will be announced. So from November 17th to about December 15th, that's when the applications will be reviewed through the committee. And then the decisions will be announced between December 15th and December 20th about your award if you are selected. January 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024 is the active grant period. So that is when you will be carrying out all of the things that you said you would do in your applications and all the things you said you would do to get the award. So that's when you're actively working on these transitional services for these at-risk populations. The final invoices will be due December 31st, 2024. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have that long to spend, but sometimes we know invoices take 30 to 45 days to send into the financial authority to get payment. So you are getting a little bit of more time there to carry things out and to also close out the grant process with any staff or any other projects or anything you have pending. So that is when the final invoices are due, December 31st, 2024. Also, at the bottom of this slide, there is a link to Senate Bill 19222, which speaks to this work and where this grant funding came from and why we are doing this. Those links are also going to be put in the chat. So if you need any assistance with clicking on those, that is all over there. So that's the timeline. And I speak really fast. It's just a habit that never went away. So apologies, but the session will be recorded and I'm happy to go back and go over anything that may have been missed. Got a little bit of delay trying to get to the next slide. So reminders, some of the things that we want to talk about when applying for this grant opportunity is remember that this funding cannot be used to supplant existing services. So essentially that means that this funding cannot be used to pay for anything that Medicaid currently already covers. This is a new program. This is something that we're trying out as we see the need for it. And this was through the ARPA dollars. So it's a very specific population and program that we're working towards for behavioral health. So we don't want to supplant any of this money for things that Medicaid already covers. We want to show that these resources are needed, and that way in the future, we can pay for it through Medicaid dollars. So that's the point, which is why we don't want to supplant anything. Also, please be sure to submit a complete application with all required documentation. That includes the cover letter that has the attestation page for your leader for your organization. Also, anything else that is required. I know there are a lot of attachments. We were working on them, Tyler and I. So if you guys need any help, just be sure to reach out. But you have to submit a complete application or we can't consider it. Also, capital expenditures will require additional approval. That's just not something that the state is looking into doing. And also we need to determine if it's sustainable if we look into capital expenditures. So that's something that's going to require levels of approval. So be cognizant of that as you're filling out your budget and how you want these funds to be used to support this initiative. And next, we're going to talk about some resources. All of these are hyperlinked, and we will share out these slides later. And I also believe that they're being dropped in the chat. So the grant opportunity is actually the grant application. That's the one that lives on the ARPA site. It has the due dates. It has a link to all of the things you need to fill out. That's the grant opportunity. In addition to that, on the ARPA website or the ARPA homepage, there's also a grant writing assistance link. I went and linked it out here. That way you guys don't have to dig for it, but it is also on the main page. So if you don't have a lot of experience writing grants or applying to grant opportunities, it's a great resource for you to use, and it is also free of charge. I also included the ARPA homepage because there's a lot of information and opportunities that live on that homepage. ARPA granted Colorado quite a bit of funds to do these behavioral mental health and all these other initiatives. So there's lots of resources there and a wealth of knowledge. So I want to make sure we share that. And also I linked the ARPA newsletter. If you are not currently receiving it, you may want to go and sign up so you can start getting those newsletters too. It will talk about this opportunity, it will talk about other opportunities, and it's just a great way to stay in touch with what's going on with the ARPA funding. Also, Tyler and I wanted to make sure that everyone knows we invite all parties and organizations to respond. If you believe you may have a conflict of interest, please respond directly to Tyler Marsh. His email is right there, and he will let you know how and if you can proceed. So like I said, those are going to be quick slides, and now we're going to jump into questions, and I will let Tyler chime in, and it'll go back and forth between us.
So at this time, we do have a moderator for this session, but if you have a specific question or a comment, please use the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen, and we will go ahead and unmute you and make sure that you can get that voiced.
So I see a hand raised and a question come through. So Tyler, I'm going to read this question off for you, and then we will get to that hand that is raised. Can a residential, because I apologize, I didn't see which one came through first, so I'm going to go with this one. Can a residential program currently serving mainly correctional clients use this funding to transition to community-based program serving Medicaid clients?
Yes, as far as I know, I believe that is allowable. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what kind of transition services you would be providing?
Hi, this is Amy Newsay. Can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, so we had done this for a previous program at our organization where we primarily served correctional clients, and most of our funding came from DCJ, almost all of it did. And we then transitioned the program, shortened the program, and transitioned it to more of a community-based program, mainly serving, or I think primarily serving, Medicaid clients. And the reason being is the funding streams changed, and we wanted to be responsive to the needs of the community as well. And so some of the costs associated with that are redesigning the program. So changing the curriculums, kind of changing the staff, shortening the program, marketing, advertising, maybe renaming the program. There's a lot that goes into kind of that change from a longer term correctional program to a shorter term Medicaid-based community program. Do you see that what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you there. Like I think it would be allowable, like just from that explanation, like I don't see any clear conflict of interest. Like again, just the idea, like we covered it in the beginning, but just to make sure that you're not supplanting existing service, like, and as far as I understand, like it sounds like it would be to create and supplement current services, like, or even to expand capacity. And so I think in this case, like it would be allowable.
Okay, great. I have one more question. Do you want me to ask or just wait for the next set of questions?
Yeah, we can go ahead. Like we'll take the next question. Go ahead.
Okay, so what about, would this funding potentially fund some startup costs associated with starting up a community-based adolescent co-occurring treatment program in the community? So sort of all those startup costs that are not billable to Medicaid?
Yes, I believe that's allowable as well. Like in the initial phases of writing this grant, like we had initially thought it would be just for adults, but we think that, like those funding streams, like can also be allowable for adolescent services.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
And I'm keeping an eye on the hands. I think the next question is from Theodora.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
I am wondering whether or not my organization is eligible to apply. I work for Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. We're an FQHC that exclusively serves people who are homeless or are at risk of homelessness. We have a behavioral health program. We have a substance treatment program. We have a MAT program. And we're about to open up a large 75-bed recuperative care program for people who are homeless, people who are released from hospitalization, but are not well enough to be released to a shelter or on the street. So what do you think? Are we eligible to apply?
Meredith, are you still on the call here?
Yeah, I am. Hi, this is Meredith Davis. I'm the Behavioral Health Special Projects Manager. So I would think, I don't, FQs are not automatically excluded, certainly. Most FQs, I think, don't do the extent of clinical services that CCH may do or offer. So I think, initially my thought would be yes, that you would be eligible to apply. I think really the biggest take-home message that it sounds like you all are already thinking about, but just to kind of reiterate, the only thing that we really can't pay for any eligible applicants or funding recipients is anything that is billable to Medicaid. Even if the agency doesn't currently bill Medicaid, if it is otherwise a billable service, we cannot use federal funding for that. But I think as long as it's doing things like expanding out, like curriculum or training or staff or all the things that would go kind of like Amy was mentioning, kind of everything that would need to start up or expand something that is not a billable Medicaid service, then I think that's absolutely permissible. Yeah, I mean, I don't anticipate a whole lot of FQs applying, but I think CCH is pretty distinct in that area. So I'm inclined to say that yeah, for clinical service expansion, as long as it's specific around those kind of high intensity services. So, like partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient, intensive MAT, multi-systemic therapy, which can be an expensive service to train up and get curriculum for. So kind of any, in-home crisis stabilization, in-home respite, all of those things, which would technically, if somebody is currently housed under within a CCH housing entity, that would be, in-home respite would certainly be available in that setting as well. So yeah, I think Theodora, I think my inclination is to say yes.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I don't see any other questions that have come through. Meredith, I saw your hand up, but I didn't know if that was it. Okay, all good.
I'm good, thanks.
I see a hand from Robin. You can unmute and go ahead. I'm not sure who's came through first, Amy or Robin, but yeah. You can, if you would like to type it, you can also type it in the Q&A section if you're unable to mute and come on. Okay, oh, I just see one hand now, Amy. You can go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, great. So just to clarify back on that other first question I asked, this would pay for the startup of transitioning to a community-based residential. So it'd still be residential, but shorter term. Or are you looking more to fund more intensive outpatient?
Yeah, all of the services that are permissible under this all have to be community-based, so they have to be outpatient, or at least partially outpatient, so that kind of partial hospitalization level. So I apologize, Amy, if we didn't get that piece of info. Yeah, because specifically the majority of our American Rescue Plan funding here at the department is specifically designated to expanding home and community-based services.
Yeah.
There may be some other funding available for other kinds of also transition services, but the vast majority really is focused around home and community based. So if it were some kind of transition from residential into like partial hospitalization or community based, then yes, definitely. If it is for residential, then that would potentially be a disqualifying factor.
Okay, but if it's from residential to more of an intensive outpatient, you could potentially pay for this funding could potentially pay for that, the transition services around that from residential to outpatient.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what it's intended for.
Okay.
It's really intended to help people step down.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean for a lot of folks, a residential step down to like 3 to 9 hours of outpatient is a big jump. So this is really about going from like 24 hours, like or kind of, 10 hours a day to, 20 to 30 hours a week back and, kind of backing down. So it's intended to create a closer step down, but still outpatient or community-based transition level of service.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I love how you highlighted that, Meredith, because that is the point of the grant, as you said, to transition to the community care and the outpatient services that way. We did have Robin send in a type question, so I'm going to read it aloud and then we can answer it live. It is difficult to find day programs to take people who are higher SIS levels due to caregiver shortage. Would this grant apply to start a day program for people who cannot currently find a day program because of their significant support needs? And I can read it again to Tyler, Meredith, if you need me to.
No, I think I got the question. And I know, Robin, you're unable to unmute. So hopefully this will not be too cumbersome to ask you to give me a little clarification. Can you tell me what some of the services are that would exist in a day program? And I guess a follow-up that I would have would be if the folks can't find a day program, are they at risk of ending up in some kind of institutional or hospital setting?
would also be my concern as well as, like if they're unable to, like, are they at risk of being reinstitutionalized?
Right.
Yeah, because I know we do have, in-home support services, caregiver services, other long-term support services, home modification services, and a other variety of things under the home and community-based service waiver that specifically is a funding mechanism within Medicaid. So, just depending if you have somebody who has a higher level of need, either, behaviorally or physically, excuse me, who needs somewhere to go to do, maybe just to have a place to be, to have someone who can care for them, but isn't a hospital setting, and they don't have an in-home caregiver. I think that to me would fall a little bit more under the HCBS waiver services and the Office of Community Living. And they do also have some funding programs. If the day program is specific about addressing behavioral health needs, providing kind of clinical, therapeutic interventions, therapy sessions, things like that, then I would think there may be a possibility. I would feel like I would need to learn more about kind of the makeup of the day program. And Robin, if you have more information than is easy to chat, you're welcome to, reach out to us, and we can certainly chat a little more detail through email or, set up a time to talk. And I can follow back up with our HCBS and our Office of Community Living folks as well.
Yeah, and I want to be sure that you get an answer, Robin, so you can always, the question came in, so I won't finish. I'll read it aloud. I have talked to lots of parents who are looking for day programs, but have not been able to find anything, so are potentially looking for an out-of-home placement, even out of state. It is for more behaviorally intense people, say transitioning out of Firefly or other behavioral programs.
Okay. Then I think, based on that, my initial thought is that yes, if it is specifically to create a place for folks with intensive behavioral health needs who may need some caregiver supports but don't have one, for them to go to work on behavioral health, to work on their needs, to address things therapeutically, but it's not residential, and it's not like kind of limited to any kind of disability, then I think my initial thought would be yes. But I again would be happy to talk through this in more detail in an email with you. And I obviously want to make sure that if someone is not, if one of you all is not eligible to apply for this funding source, that you're aware of other funding sources that may be available instead. And so I would certainly want to, reach out to our OCL, our Office of Community Living team. But based on what you're kind of thinking for more behaviorally intensive folks who might otherwise be looking for day programs as opposed to out of home placement, I think absolutely if folks are able to stay in the home at night and do day programs that are behavioral health focused during the day, and that is specific to avoid them being at risk of institutionalization, that's what this is for. You got it. And Robin, I'm going to put, and this is for everybody as well, and I think you have Jay and Tyler's info, but my email address is in the chat. Excuse me, tickle in my throat. I hate how that just sneaks up on you. But you're more than welcome to shoot us an email. And I'm happy to liaise between the Office of Community Living and the HCBS waiver folks, and just make sure if I'm incorrect at all, that I'm able to link you with the right folks. So you're welcome to reach out. Any of you are welcome to reach out.
Hey, Robin, I know you said you didn't see her email. It's in the chat. So it should be one of the most recent chats that just came through. But I'll type it here too. No harm.
And if you just have Tyler's and Jay's, because it's on the screen, they certainly know where to find me. So I think you can email them and they can absolutely loop me in. More than happy to be in the loop.
Yeah, and I was going to say that you can email either one of us and we will find the answer and get back to you. The goal is to ensure that these funds are out in the community and doing good work. I haven't seen any more questions come through, and I know how sometimes when the call is over, something comes to mind, and feel free to email. Go ahead, Theodora, I'll be quiet.
Thanks. Meredith, you mentioned that in-home respite services would be allowable if someone was living in a CCH housing program. However, we are launching now, starting the 1st of December, a recuperative care facility that will provide 75 short-term beds for people who are coming out of hospitals. Would the recuperative, we're calling them recuperative care because medical respite just got too sloppy, but would those respite services in that facility be allowable in this grant?
And I'm on mute. There we go. I'm going to unmute myself before I try to answer you. That is a fabulous question. And I actually appreciate, because I think it's one of the nuances that we knew was kind of come up for the project, but weren't exactly sure what would come up. So my initial answer is that I don't know. But what I would love to do is check with both our head nursing officer, who I know has done a lot of work on recuperative care. And then just also check with how we define community-based and outpatient, since if someone is residing in a residential behavioral health facility, that's considered residential. And so that it is technically where they live, but it's not really their in-home. I'm inclined to think the way that it is defined similarly for folks in recuperative care, but if it's not an alternative to a home-based recuperative care because that individual is still currently unhoused, then I think that changes things a little bit. So if you don't mind, I would love to, if you haven't shared it as part of the invite, which I think Jay would know, if we can get your email address, I'd like to follow up with a couple of folks in the department and just kind of see how we're defining things and find out if that is an eligible service under which you can apply for this or not. And then if not, then be able to direct you to the right folks who might be able to help support funding for some respite services at a recuperative care facility.
Okay, great. Let me know if you have my email address, because my screen says my chat is disabled. I don't know why that is.
Weird. Okay.
And I'll confirm right now, I believe that we should be able to get a listing of your email addresses when you enter the meeting, but I'm double checking that right now.
Okay. And I mean, I don't imagine, Theodora, that if you have a CCH email address, that it would be extremely difficult to find. We do also have a colleague who is a former CCHer, so I can probably track you down.
It's my name that you have a hard time with.
See?
I know you said you couldn't chat. I was gonna say drop it in chat, but let me see.
I think I can get it. Yeah.
Okay. And I think it should give me a list when the meeting is over.
I would imagine
Pretty
so.
sure.
But
Yeah,
either
I'm pretty
way,
sure it
I'll
does
make
that.
myself a note and I'll follow up with you either way, Theodora.
Okay, the chat just opened up for me, so I'm typing my.
Yay.
email address in there right now. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for that question, Theodora.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised. I don't see any more questions that have come through. This session is being recorded, so we will share it out online at the ARPA website where the opportunity is listed, just in case anyone wants to go back through any of the questions or answers that have already been discussed. Well, I want to be cognizant of your time, and if there are no more questions, we can go ahead and end a little bit early. You can always reach out to me, Tyler, or Meredith, and we will get you an answer. So just let us know if you need anything, but if there are no further questions, you can feel free to go. This opportunity will be listed online. Reach out with any questions, and thank you so much for your time and participation. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks
We
for
look
joining
forward to
us.
the conversation.
Thank you, guys. It's been good.
And thank you, Jay and Tyler, for facilitating.